Hello and welcome back to Link to the Cast, your weekly dose of video games and nerd culture ephemera, available everywhere. A good podcast or so. I'm your festive party host, Dave Ryan. Garrett Kidney's away on assignment, but fear not, I am joined by first. He is the handsome conduit. He's Christmas Mark Robinson. How are you, my friend?
Feeling festive, I guess.
Yeah, you look it.
Yeah, I feel it. Yeah, it's kind of
dressed
like,
entirely in black.
you know.
Motherfucker looks the same like he always looks.
Like, I'm seeing everyone talking about clocking off for Christmas and, you know, signing out of their whatever email service of use. And it's the first year in my kind of like adult life where I haven't had that kind of feeling due to, you know, not having a job all year. So Christmas is kind of a weird one this year. Like, we're having a very quiet one, just me and Maria, on Christmas Day. And so I don't have that kind of same vibe, that kind of feeling of like looking forward to those days off and that feeling of earning those days off. And I don't know if there's a little bit of kind of like guilt by association that I haven't kind of put because I have been working hard this year on like my stuff. So I don't know, there's kind of a weird sort of existential crisis of sorts that I'm having, which is probably not like the best place here to be having that conversation, but there you are. You asked, you got it.
Yeah. I mean, look, after last week opening with like 10 to 15 solid minutes of Chris Benoit talk, I think like existential crises, it's not, we're not a million miles away from the usual candor.
And quite honestly, it's not the first time you've asked me how I am and I've gone on a 5-minute tangent about, you know, whatever. So
yeah. I'm just going to edit a Mark saying fine from another show.
The Atlanta Falcons. You've heard the other voice there. It's Mr. Sidona, which feels like, a seasonal fruity beverage. It's Jack Lazell. Jack, how are you?
I'll take seasonal fruity beverage as a nickname. That's fine by me.
Seasonal fruity beverage, Jack Lazell.
A seasonal fruity beverage. Yeah, I'm good, thanks, mate. Yes, the complete opposite of what Mark just said. I have been grafting my nards to the bone this year, and I finished my work earlier and proceeded to put on a podcast about the best sneaker of the year and fall asleep to it. So thanks very much, Complex.
Amazing.
And then I woke up, ordered a taco, and now I'm here.
That's a great evening.
Yeah, shout out Taco Monster in North London, by the way, banging.
Shout out. I finished 2 days ago. I finished on Wednesday evening, and I was like, the speed at which I hoofed my work phone into my locker in the back room, and then just so that there wouldn't even be a temptation before I'm back. Nice long break till the 8th of January. So
and somewhere during that, your hair fell out. Like, what happened there?
Yeah, the hair is gone. It's weird. I'm rocking my I'm over this shit in WWE Phil Brooks look circa 2013.
I was going to go more like, remember when Keno shaved his head for the first time and looked like a genuine psychopath?
Yeah. Thanks.
But you've got like a softer face than that. Yeah. Well, when I first saw it, I was just like, I don't understand it.
Slightly like softer, cuddly, unhinged.
No, but yeah, Dave's still got like a friendly face, you know. He's got a sort of face like if you wanted to ask somebody where the cheese was, you'd ask Dave, right? But like,
I look like where I know where the cheese would be.
You do look like you know where the cheese would be. I've always wanted to say this to you, but it's something about someone having lots of hair and then having no hair is emotionally disconcerting. And I will give you an example of this from my own life. My dad used to have long hair.
Shout out Big Dan.
I did not know this about Dennis. It doesn't surprise me, but I did not know this.
I mean, he was a biker as well. I just want to add.
And he did like Deep Purple. And like, it all connects. It all tracks.
He was into metal, and he wore denim and leather and, like Saxon, just like everyone else did in the 1980s. And so he had long hair up until I was about 3 or 4, and he shaved it all off one day because like he was, going bored and stuff, and decided like he couldn't be bothered to cling onto it anymore. And
did a Billy Corgan.
And he came into the room, and I screamed, cried, and I was a very calm child, by the way. I barely ever like had massive tantrums or like was crying. Like even as a baby, my mum was like, I was far more invested in eating and sleeping than I was like crying or being, rambunctious in any way. And I cried and screamed just at the horror of this man who looked like his head was a different person that was like standing there on my dad's body, and I was confused. And yeah,
Jack, I demand that like there has to be a picture somewhere for me to see. I need to see Dennis with long hair.
My dad looking like a Mella. Yeah, I mean, definitely. Yeah, I'm sure he was in like one of those Backstreet Heroes like motorcycle magazines or something as well when he was younger. But yeah, man, he was part of that original, like you say, new wave of British heavy metal kind of Deep Purple, Led Zeppelin kind of time. You know, he was at that Led Zeppelin gig at Nebworth that everyone's like was so legendary. He was there. Barely remembers any of it because he was stoned and drunk out of his mind. His words, not mine. So there you go. But yeah, that's my old man.
Have I ever told you how much I love your dad?
Yeah, I mean, look, he's
a fucking good dude.
He's done a lot of things. He's a geezer, but he's also like dead into his music and everything. You know, he's not too dissimilar to me.
He's in our top 2 Lazels.
Yeah, the other one's my mum.
I've never met your brother, but I like the cut of his jib.
Yeah.
Jack, if you ever want to do like a side podcast where we just get your dad on and just get him to fucking talk about living in the 70s and 80s, I'm here for it.
Yeah, every story starts off, it was me, my mate Cooper, man, and blah, 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 and I was so drunk, I can't even remember it anyway. I was standing up and then I fell over, and about an hour later, I'm like, what? It's all over the place. Narrative, drunk, has no idea what he's talking about. Cooper Man was always there. I don't know who Cooper Man is. I've never met Cooper Man.
I think the one, if we finally get bored of this and we want to just nuke the podcast, I think the move is to have a summit between Dennis and Mark's granddad.
Yes.
Oh my god.
The lads. They call them the lads, Michael.
Look, I've never met Big Den in person. I have met Mark's granddad in person. One thing I can conclude is that 2 hours of a hot mic around those two men, this podcast will be cancelled.
Those two have been in the same room on at least a handful of occasions.
Couple of times, yeah.
Yeah. Because I remember a period of time when we were younger, and obviously we were playing gigs together and whatnot, and my granddad grew to be at least familiar with, you, Biggs, Niner, and like extended family and whatnot, and he would always ask about how all of like the family members were, and he did ask on a number of occasions, like how's Jack's dad doing? He's all good, because when your dad fell ill a few years ago, and I kind of told my grandparents about it, they would constantly ask, like, how is Jack's dad and whatnot, and yeah,
because they wanted to adopt another troubled team from the sort of Hertfordshire Cheshunt area.
But the idea of those two in a live mic setting is probably a terrible idea. But also, I feel wildly compelled to at least make that happen once.
Yeah, is there a sort of like male relative we could whip in there for you, Dave, that would make things interesting as well?
My granddad is a strange person. I don't know if he'd vibe with your representatives on the podcast, but he's certainly he's the strangest person I could pull out. Although I suppose there's
has your granddad ever seen Iron Maiden live? Because that's the connective tissue. Well, then
does he know who Iron Maiden are?
No.
I was going to say, does he respond to texts? Text him now.
It's more likely he was in an Iron Maiden than knows what Iron Maiden was.
It's like, this is feckin' spiky. I need to get out of it.
Yeah. Although I do have a granduncle. I recently told a story on Days of Thunder, so I don't want to repeat. I will give the Cliff Notes version, where I have a crazy granduncle who tried to concoct a scheme with his wife at the time that he would they would commit insurance fraud, health insurance fraud, by having him committed and then getting out. And when he got committed,
I'm sorry, that's a fucking episode from Always Sunny.
When he got committed, the wife put everything in her name, took all his money and left him.
Oh
no, that definitely is a fucking bit from Always Sunny now.
He got worked into a shoot.
Man,
that's happening to Charlie, by the way.
But this is a story that happened in like the 80s, and I found out in my 30s, and I was like, how is this not what we're talking about all the time?
That is literally one of the greatest stories I've ever heard. Yeah. Oh dear. Which episode of Days of Thunder is it on? But by the way, like award nominated Days of Thunder.
Award nominated, yes, yeah. For Best Wrestling Podcast and Sports Podcast Awards.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for the plug, so I didn't have to shamelessly do it all by myself.
Going beat for beat with Kurt Angle as well.
Kurt Angle and Conan and Disco. And I found out, do you know who I didn't realise by the name of it? Do you know who else hosts one of the nominated podcasts?
No.
This is going to get Mark big time. Ted DiBiase Jr.
I'm sorry, what?
I am up against the DiBiase posse.
The last time I read about him, I thought he'd been fucking like done for battery or something.
No, well, the whole family was done in a fraud scheme.
Oh, right, that was it.
Remembering.
Okay.
Yeah,
right.
I heard he was trying to commit
senior.
insurance fraud, committed himself, and his wife stole all his money.
You know what? That was the real DiBiase posse all the time.
By the way, whoever that the lady is in that scenario, like, did anyone keep up with her, or did she get done by the police eventually?
I don't think
She'll be on the
so.
podcast next week.
Yeah,
No,
I don't
we need
think so.
her.
Look, I'll put it this way. This was all said very matter-of-factly to me, as if I already knew the story, and I had such a I've just been hit by a truck reaction to it that I didn't ask a lot of clarifying questions.
Yeah. Do you know what though? I got told a story. I mean, like, let's just make this podcast complete nonsense.
I mean, this is your Christmas special, by the way.
It's the pre-Christmas show.
Enjoy.
Like, things are wacky.
I got told by my mum on her birthday this year, which was in July, right? I got told by my mum that when
she has an evil twin.
Oh, I wish. When she was growing up, she had a bunch of uncles, like, who were in the army, and they would come home. And one of them brought home a monkey and kept the monkey as a pet in a house in Edmonton for 10 years. Okay. And do you know what? And so and I was like, you are telling me this now, and I am 35 years old and I'm just finding out this story. And even more ridiculous than that, the name of the fucking monkey was Jacko. And I was like, Mum, if I am named after that monkey, I swear to God. I swear to fucking God.
I don't understand the logistics of that, because surely that monkey at some point goes fucking feral. Because, like,
I had so many questions.
Yeah.
I just literally it fucking torpedoed the whole evening. It was my mum's birthday, and I was just like, Mum, what the hell? Like, first of all, in Edmonton, and like a small little like tropical monkey living in a house, and apparently like one of the grandmas knitted it a little sweater that it used to wear around, and Mum's like, sometimes it would just kind of sit there and stare out the window, and I was like, it was probably sad, you know. It used to be she couldn't remember where, but they were stationed away, and this dude like snuck it home in a bag, you know, from being on the Navy and all of that. You know, like, some of the people would bring home like contraband from other countries, like, you know, cigarettes and exotic booze and all of this, and this dude brought home a monkey, kept it for 10 years. This thing lived in,
I mean, what do you do? What do you put up for it to be able to get exercise? Do you have to put like a fucking stripper's pole up or something, so it's got at least something to fucking swing around on?
I genuinely don't know. And because I think we were talking about Friends and, like, you know, like Ross having a monkey or whatever, and my mum's like, oh, my uncle had a monkey, and I was like, oh, I'll be a monkey's uncle, like, I think thinking she was making a joke. She's like, no, seriously, and told me the story, and I was just, yeah, and I was like, oh God, and I just asked question after question. We're trying to establish what breed of monkey it was. I was like Googling monkeys, like I was like in the Matrix or something, trying to find the right monkey to match up with her, just like zeros and ones of different monkey pictures going through my eyeballs. But yeah, man, Des, do you know, this is why I think you, in a way, you know, I'm not a huge Kevin Smith guy anymore, but him interviewing the hell out of his best friends and like his family and all that, and, you know, trying to get all the information they can out of them, I genuinely wish I could just podcast with like everyone I know, all of the family, because there's probably so much gold like hidden in the vaults of all these people that you know, and all of their families and all of the crazy stories that they have, that it's never going to come out. So like, if me and Dave are learning like that there's a serious, you know, mental insurance fraud and a monkey at this point in our lives, imagine what we're missing out on.
But this is the thing, because all you got to do is just sit. Like, I had my uncle and his wife come to visit me a couple of months ago now. He didn't have a monkey, no. But like, I realised, like, I haven't really sat down with my uncle in the past like 10, 15 years and just like me and him chatted, because usually whenever I'd see him, it would be with, you know, Christmas or with the grandparents, whatever. And in the span of about 48 hours, I found out more about him as like when he was younger and as a teenager and all that sort of stuff than I did in like than any time I'd ever known him, because I just realised like I've never actually just sat down and just kind of let the conversation flow. Because you know, you have the kind of voice call you'll do every couple of months or so, but it's very much just a hey, how you doing? Like, everything's all good, blah blah blah. But to actually just kind of sit there and chat, and you're like, this is an actual human being who's lived a life and done things, and you don't really register that until you're in a kind of environment where the conversation just kind of flows over a few hours, and you know, like, people just open up and talk about themselves, and it's just like, oh yeah, fuck, I probably should sit down and talk to my family members more and kind of see what the fuck they've been up to in their lives.
I agree.
It's just picture Mark sitting there with like a close relative, be like, so what's the deal with you?
Yeah. How do you live?
What's
when you find
here?
out when you find out your granddad's held someone at gunpoint, like after that, what more do you need to know?
Yeah.
Like it's fucking Tony. His name is Tony, so like he's halfway to Sopranos. Why not?
Well,
I don't need to get into it hugely here, but I've told you about the story of my granddad trying to drug magpies. He hasn't got like held a gun to somebody, but he's got some stories about what an unhinged loon he is in his own way this whole time.
Oh,
shall we?
And here's the Christmas spent with them.
Yeah. Shall we begrudgingly get closer to the usual fare on this show and talk about what we've been watching? Right. I'll start. I usually throw to somebody else, but I'll take it.
Do you know what, actually, I really want to know what Godzilla Minus One is like, because I've heard good things about this, Dave. Tell me.
Right, let's lead with that. This movie fucking whips ass.
Yeah. Right, before Dave goes on, I genuinely said to him, I don't know if I'm more happy for him getting the nomination for like Best Sports Podcast of the Year or having a Godzilla movie comes out that he really likes, because I'd imagine both of those things are equally important in his life.
Does Matthew Broderick kill a guy in it?
Look, no, sadly. There isn't a butchering of Kashmir in it either.
That Jamiroquai song rocks though.
Look.
No doubt.
I love a kaiju movie. This is known about me, as Jack has just said. I think when it came out, Pacific Rim was a borderline religious experience. And I have, since I saw Godzilla Minus One yesterday, been like, I should watch Pacific Rim again. It's the Transformers movie I always wanted when I was a kid with kaiju in it. The legendary... in terms of Western adaptations of Godzilla in my lifetime, it's been a real mixed fucking bag, lads. We had the aforementioned Broderick one, which, that was a movie.
Is it wrong for me to admit I still kind of like that movie a little bit?
It's not a good movie, though.
No.
I'm presuming, Jack, that would have been like your introduction to Godzilla as it was
unfortunately,
for most of us.
it was, yeah. And it was clear like they were like, oh, well, Jurassic Park's really popular. Let's make a Godzilla movie and make it more like a dinosaur. Because there's none of like the Godzilla lore in it, really, is there? You see like a scared Japanese man at the start saying Gojira, and that is it. The rest of it is just a dumb New York disaster movie. I don't know, something about like that sort of 90s period, like when you watch a movie when you're sort of the ages of like 9, 10 up until like 14, 15, they kind of stick with you for life, and I haven't rewatched it in many years. Maybe I'll do that over the Christmas break. I'll rewatch it and I'll reevaluate how bad it is.
The more recent adaptations, people will know like the kind of legendary verse that's going on, and they've been a mixed bag in as much as I think like with
let's get Bryan Cranston and kill him off in 5 minutes.
Yeah, well, this is the thing, that the problem that has been with the legendary movies is that the actual scenes of Godzilla or Kong wrecking shit are class.
Yeah.
But it's all the human drama stuff has been genuinely embarrassing, except for the Cranston stuff, and they immediately kill him straight away and leave you to Aaron Taylor Johnson being terrible for the whole rest of the movie.
So bland.
And he
had like the generic 2.4 children with the blonde wife and everything. Ugh.
Yeah. And in King of Monsters, where you have like all you need to do is have it be like an hour and a half of Godzilla whomping on Ghidorah and like just have him killing other monsters, have him fighting the shit out of them. That's all you want, and you're cutting back to, God bless him, I like Brian Tyree Henry, but him being a podcaster thrust into the middle of all this, and then other family drama stuff going on with other ancillary characters. I just want to see fucking Mothra and Rodan, man. Like, fuck off. So that's been the main problem with them. Now, I actually have heard that the streaming show that's on at the moment, I can't remember if it's on Apple or Paramount, Monarch Legacy of Monsters, is apparently pretty decent, but I haven't watched it yet. Anyway, this is a long way of saying that the latest Japanese Godzilla movie very unusually, is getting a pretty wide release in a lot of Western countries, Ireland being one of them. And like, instead of just having to go to like an art house cinema or something like that to watch a new Godzilla movie, I would have been able to watch this in the local Odeon. That's how widespread this is.
Oh, amazing.
Now, I happened to be in Dublin, so I went to Cineworld to go see Godzilla Minus One yesterday. And holy shit, my dudes. It's just like, this is you just boil down the Godzilla formula to exactly what I want. And it's post-war Japan. It's all about, because like it's well documented at this point. Like the Godzilla, the series of movies was a lot of the way Japanese filmmakers attempted to digest and process what had happened to them in the war. Yeah, that's what it comes out of, the whole nuclear angle and things like that to Godzilla.
Like the monster they deserve as a result of their actions.
So Godzilla Minus One brings you right back to Godzilla's first appearance in mainland Japan, and your main character in it, of the humans, like the main character, obviously Godzilla, but the main human character is this guy who was a kamikaze pilot in the final days of the war, who basically, he lands on Odo Island, which is where there was like basically mechanics fixing faulty kamikaze planes before guys went on their mission. And so he lands there, but he gets cold feet about completing his kamikaze mission. And while he's on the island trying to either find a way to bail out or get psyched up to go do it, a very young and much smaller Godzilla strikes Odo Island. And then fast forward years later, this guy is now several years post-war. His family and a lot of people around him died in the air raids of Tokyo at the end of the war, and a lot of people who survive around there are, including himself, put it on him that maybe if he had successfully flown his plane into something, it would have helped turn the tide. And it's cowards like him that caused his parents and people he knew, his neighbor lady lost her 2 sons and all this sort of stuff. And she's putting that blame on him, and he's putting it on himself. So he's like racked with guilt about how he had this opportunity, because even during the Odo Island attack, he was sitting in his plane with his chain gun and could have shot at Godzilla and just froze. So he even puts the death of the soldiers on Odo Island on himself. So he's racked with guilt, and then Godzilla reemerges much, much bigger, and would you believe it, Godzilla's coming to wreck Tokyo. And what unfurls is actually a really, really like it's a class kaiju film for a start, because it's just there's no need for Mothra or Rodan or anybody like that in this. It's just Godzilla v Tokyo, and the humans that are kind of trying to band together a resistance to trap and finish off Godzilla. I think that some of the wacky ancillary characters your man meets are really good. He ends up doing like a kind of, to try and get work to kind of fund the rebuilding of the rubble that is his house. He starts doing government work, disarming mines out in the bay. And that's where he meets these kind of like the weird grizzled sea captain, the young kid that's helping them out, and then the kind of kooky former Navy scientist are his little crew. They're all really fun. Whereas the special effects budget clearly isn't as huge as the legendary pictures are. Like, there's no single special effects shot that's half as impressive as that. You saw the first Godzilla reboot, Jack, didn't you? With Taylor Johnson. That Halo jump sequence is genuinely one of like the coolest things I've ever seen in a movie. So there's nothing on that level or scale, but I think the effects do look really good in this. There's only a couple of shots where you're like, oh, okay, that doesn't look great, but it's a charming kind of not great at the same time.
Well, Dave, the budget, it says here, was less than $15 million. Yeah. So if you take that into account,
you will be astonished.
Yeah, that's what a lot a lot of the things that I've heard about this movie are just genuinely staggered that so little was spent on it and it looks as good as it does. And it's a testament to like the filmmaker and how they managed to bring like a really distinct visual style to it without, you know, opening the bank balance up. And
well, I think it's also a testament to that, but also it shines a very big spotlight on the millions upon millions being blown on name your kind of modern American blockbuster of choice that looks just fucking ropey as fuck. And you know,
I need to make a drop for Mark. This is modern CGI. Like I feel like it happens so much. I don't ever disagree with you.
I actually was thinking of Mark a lot last night because I was watching the Patrick H. Willems holiday special where he talks about the modern Star Wars movies. And he talks about like how like Patrick H. Willems hates most of the Star Wars shows because he's like, you know,
even Andor.
He except Andor. Andor's the one because he's like all the rest of them. They basically don't make coherent sense if you take out all the nostalgia receptor moments in it. As like these things exist to force feed you nostalgia, or to retread something that's already been done. And even the stuff that's better than others, like he mentioned Mandalorian, it's like you just put incredibly good actors under helmets for the whole thing, and then you also inject nostalgia into that. And he was actually very hard on your friend Ass Soaker. Because he's just like, half this shit that's supposed to pop you doesn't make sense unless you've seen incredibly specific other Star Wars things.
Yeah, like the animated Star Wars shows, which I have seen, and that is why I do like it. But for your average person, you know, when they talk about Admiral Thrawn and do the big reveal of Admiral Thrawn, people are like, who's this guy?
Yeah, like, it's like this specific. He goes, this is a big moment, and it's put in like a big moment. But unless you've seen the season 4 finale of Star Wars Rebels, you've no idea what the fuck this giant statue is.
Well, genuinely, like my I hate to bring him up again, but my old man loves Star Wars stuff, right?
Big Dan.
And he's like, well, I'm watching this Ahsoka show, yeah, and he says Ahsoka every time and laughs because he thinks it's really funny. But he's just like, well, I don't know what the blue Smurf geezer was about. Like, I was like, oh, that's Grand Admiral Thrawn. Is this, that, and the other thing? He's like, what, like Darth Vader? Then I'm like, well, not really. And he's like,
you're a fucking loser, mate.
You watch your fucking cartoons there for
my
kids,
dad
mate.
beat me up and stole my lunch money.
Exactly.
But no, so like it looks incredible for the budget that was spent on it. Very correct. The other thing, again, the thing that separates it hugely from the legendary stuff is I feel the human drama element is actually interesting. It has something to say. It's well acted and performed by everybody, including a very good, like, toddler child actor.
Oh, wow.
And because there is work put in the first hour to build the relationships between him and the crew, between him and I won't get into too many of their characters, but him and a couple of other people around, the emotional moments and payoffs are great, you know? So like it is earned. I think the only human drama moment that feels earned in any of the legendary verse is and it's not even that emotional moment apart from I popped out my shoes, is you probably know the one I'm going for, Jack, is in the first one when Ken Watanabe looks into the middle distance and says, let them fight.
Yes.
Which fucking whips ass.
It really does, yeah.
The Godzilla movie's pretty good if you fast forward all the Aaron Taylor Johnson bits. But Godzilla Minus One, it's awesome. I gave it 4.5 boys on Letterboxd. I think everyone should go see it, and it's very much a go see it in the cinema. Like it's, I'm sure it'll be good on a small screen, but you want to see it. The other thing, very faithful to the traditional monster design of Godzilla, short arms and all. Very authentic Godzilla screech noise, and yes, the old school Godzilla music is employed in force in this movie, and it fucking rocks, apart from the half second where you're like, is Samoa Joe about to come out in the cinema? So yeah,
that's fine though, except for me, the old school Godzilla music is Deeper Underground by Jamiroquai, so I'm going to be disappointed when that doesn't drop.
Yeah, I mean, one of the
nightmare person.
One of the great bass lines of our time, though.
Oh, without doubt. One of the great music videos of our time as well.
Just reminds me of that bit in Brooklyn Nine-Nine where Adrian Pimento, Jason Mantzoukas, is doing blow, and he's saying, "Oh, this is how you fake do blow," and then accidentally starts snorting it, and then after 3 lines, his eyes light up, and he looks around at everyone. He's like, "You guys want to listen to some Jamiroquai records?" And that's why.
Get ready. Watch your next for this tonal whiplash. But the other thing I've been watching, a man who now has to answer for himself, I've been watching The Morning Show, Jack.
Yeah.
So, as well acted and dramatic as this is, you have a lot to answer for recommending a show that's this much of a fucking bummer to people.
It can be a bummer, but it also can be really funny, and I just love how melodramatic the show is, man.
Yeah,
it's so melodramatic in a way that, like, I think it's not. It goes beyond being cheesy, and you're just impressed with how much melodrama there is in the show.
I go back and forth about the message of the show.
There's no message to the show.
Because this show's stance on Me Too sometimes is troubling to me.
I think the interesting thing that I like about the show, right, is that it's a news organization, and there are certain people that want to make a stance, and then there are certain other people who don't want to make a stance, and you kind of get like the representation of what the internal. I think what they're trying to do is represent what the internal conflict is like, as to how much, what do we do in this situation? How do we handle these conversations? What do we present on air? What do we tell our viewers about it, and all of this kind of stuff? And these are probably the conversations that are going on, and they've got nothing to do with representing the feelings of the actual people that got hurt in it. They're all to do with how they present themselves publicly.
It's also a very interesting thing that the 2 most monstrous characters that have appeared, I'm already on season 2, the 2 most monstrous characters that have appeared in the show are both played by notably comedic actors in Steve Carell, and then even more monstrous Martin Short.
Yeah, exactly.
Martin Short, who's full on a Woody Allen coded level, or actually worse, because Woody Allen isn't on Front Street about what a monster he is. I don't know what the apt comparison would be. But there's an interesting conversation that happens between him and Steve Carell early on, where Steve Carell tries to take the moral high ground on this guy, because he's just I'm not admitting to what I did, but at least I'm not as bad as you.
Exactly that, yeah.
I was it's real, man, when you're down here in the mud, you're trying to find anybody that you can have the moral high ground over. But what it is, I think the thing that I appreciate about it the most is that I think it's maybe the most I've got to see Jennifer Aniston stretch her acting chops.
She's very good in the show.
Yeah, because everybody else in it, in a prominent role, you're okay, I've seen Reese Witherspoon be good in things frequently.
Sure.
I think Billy Crudup is a guy who's class, but he's always in bit parts, or he's doing weird disaffected Dr. Manhattan, or
yeah.
So I like him a bunch, but I've seen him be good in things, so it's not surprising to me to the level that Jennifer Aniston doing hardcore drama here is.
Yeah, and we never really, even deeper into the show, you never really get closer to Billy Crudup, and he's just so everything about his performance of being that high level media executive is just so stage managed, and you never get to see kind of behind the curtain from him. He never really talks in terms of how he really feels about something. He's always pointing in the direction of what's best for the network, what's best for the show, what's best for the sponsors, how can we stay afloat, kind of thing. I think he's probably up there as my favorite character on the show. I think he's incredible, so good, and season 3 is the real season of Billy Crudup. So when you get there, you'll enjoy it.
I think my favorite character might be the eternally put upon Chip, played by Mark Duplass, who's who Mark is the exec producer of this saccharine morning show, but is played in every scene with every line as a man perpetually on the edge of massive coronary episodes.
Oh,
Yeah.
Like he looks.
Okay.
There has never been a more weather-beaten man, just beaten down by the mire and shite of life-looking man. He looks how you feel.
Yeah, like the guy who's only slept 5 hours in the last 6.5 weeks.
Just got like the real sunken cheekbones sort of thing going on.
And like everything from the posture to like the delivery of the lines.
level of stubble where it's gone from looking, handsome and interesting to like I don't know if he's looking after himself. Like
it's not 5 o'clock shadow, it's 11 o'clock shadow.
I think I need to do a welfare check on Chip kind of level. Like
and obviously completely obsessed with Jennifer Aniston's character as well, which just makes it even worse. As he just like watches her flop around and make really bad decisions with like life and love, and he's clearly deeply in love with her. He's very good. Mark Duplass, very good. Generally, watch The League, really funny show. I thoroughly recommend it. But yes, he's very good at this too.
The one dude who I can't necessarily take seriously is Yanko.
Yes, I knew you were going to say Yanko.
The weatherman, played by Nesto Carbonelli, isn't it? Yeah.
I love him so much.
I think since Lost, I can't take that man seriously.
Yeah.
Because he's not Jacob, is he? He's the other one.
I never really watched that much Lost, to be honest.
He's a dude in Lost, and it's just like since then that's all. Like it's the fucking weirdo Lost dude that works with Ben.
It just wears weird eyeshadow on the show as well, like really sort of thick black eyeliner that just makes him look borderline chipmunky that I don't understand. Yeah, and they always give him the really awkward, strange storylines as well. Or like later on in the show, you'll notice this. If they want somebody to have like a view that's against the view that all of the people on the show are standing for, they'll just throw it to him and just have him say something ridiculous instead. He's a character they didn't really develop, I would say, very well, but I like him because he kind of turns into a sort of one-note joke, I think, as the longer as the show goes on, and I'm fine with that. By the way, the whole storyline with Gugu and Batha Raw as Hannah Schoenfeld in the first series, I thought was genuinely one of the most brilliant and affecting things I'd seen around that kind of Me Too thing, which in a ridiculous, melodramatic, silly show like The Morning Show was very surprising. And I feel like she should have been nominated for awards for that. If she wasn't, I don't think she was, but she was just so incredible in that. I'll shout that performance out in particular as one that you've seen the sort of start and end of anyway.
But that's the morning show for now. I've got a season and a half left till I'm up to date, so we'll see. I might get to it over Christmas, but also Christmas is not really the time to watch that type of show, so maybe I'll put a pin in it till January when I'm already bummed out.
You know who like the main guest star of season 3 is, right?
The Hammer.
Oh, Big Ham. Big Ham. Big bad ham.
So I've heard.
Yeah, well, I think we all know. Just, I mean, he's predictably great. Just fucking Ham, man. He rocks. He's funny. He can act.
Wham bam.
He's got a big hammer.
Ham.
Yeah. Well, what's not to like?
Right, let's go. Stick with you, Jack.
Hello. So I don't know why that made you laugh.
30 minutes into the podcast. Hello.
Hello, everybody. It's me, remember? I have been watching this week the first 2 episodes of season 8 of Jetlag, which I have talked about on the show before. One of my favourite shows is a geography-based challenge show where 2 teams kind of compete in various tasks. Like one was they had to go to different state capitals in America, perform a challenge, and then they claim that state, and it was like using America like a giant sort of Connect 4 board, because they had to connect 4 states across to get the point. Or there was another one where they played tag in Europe and they had to end up in certain zones at the end where there were 3 main players. So very good. So this season is basically they need to get from the farthest possible north point in the United States of America, which, if anyone didn't know, is a place called Utqiagvik in Alaska that has 1 flight a day that goes out of it and is not accessible by any other mode of transport than airplane. As a result of that, if you want to buy a frozen pizza there, it's like $20, or like a 6-pack of Coke is like $15, because everything in this place has to be flown in. So everything's super expensive. So I genuinely have no idea how the locals can kind of afford to live, because I can't imagine there's a huge amount of employment in Reykjavik, but hey. Anyway, the competitions they get from there to Key West, which is the very, very bottom corner of America in Florida. And every day they kind of rotate around something that they call in the flop, which is a bunch of tickets come up, and it's either like a plane ticket, a train ticket, or like a pass to get a certain amount of car travel for a period of time, and then they have to do a challenge to complete it to unlock this so they can move on. So the idea is over the course of 4 days, I believe, for them to get from one point to another. And Michelle Carey is the guest in this season with the guy who kind of created, well, not only just the show, but was one of the founding members of Nebula, and his two employees who are called Ben and Adam. And these two guys are just the most cute, lovable pair of idiots you've ever seen.
Doofuses.
Absolute clowns, the pair of them. One of them is
I genuinely, myself and Emma have had this discussion. It's like if the two of us were on a travel show.
Oh yeah, like one of them's hyper anxious all the time about trying to finish things off. The other one is always like so carefree. And he, honestly, Dave, you haven't seen the previous series in Europe, the second Europe tag season that they did, but Ben in particular in this season, it's just my favorite Ben moments ever possible, and I don't want to ruin any of them. But yeah, as a comedy pairing, they play off against, well, I mean, Sam, who's the guy who created the show, is like, he's very intelligent. He's basically a big blonde geography robot who looks like Erling Haaland, to the point where he actually brought out an Erling Haaland shirt in one of the series because he was so sick of everybody saying that he looked like it that he just decided to kind of adopt it. But it's just, yeah, so the first two shows, and they've already hyped up a drama and left like a massive cliffhanger on episode 2, and it's just some of the most watchable things out there just in existence right now. If this was a TV show, say in the 90s or something, it would have been insanely popular with kids. And it's bound to spawn, and I think it has already spawned quite a few copycat type things. But it has that sort of, the feel of the old Top Gear challenges where they used to have to get like a certain, one of them was on a mode of transport and the other one was in a car or sort of thing, and they were all kind of competing against each other. But it's all of that feeling without the sort of problematic element of Jeremy Clarkson in the show. And they've all got like a great relationship and play off each other really well. I'd thoroughly, I mean, I've recommended it before, but if you've never seen Jet Lag, it's the sort of thing where if you watch 1 or 2 episodes and you get the premise, you are then watching the rest of that season.
You down that YouTube hole.
Oh, Mark, please watch it. I genuinely think you would like it. I watched the first
4 seasons in about 2 weeks.
Yeah. I think you would really like it. It's so smart. And
has Garrett started watching it? Because it also seems like it'd be very much his style of thing.
I think Garrett would like it, but I find it difficult to recommend things to Garrett because I never know what he is and isn't going to like.
You don't want it to come off and go, that was dog shit.
Remember when he hate watched the whole of Succession just so he could bury it right to my face?
Yeah.
It's one of those. I think he would like it. How could he not like Ben and Adam? Like, they're just the perfect.
How could he not like
pair.
The Snack Zone?
Yeah, exactly. They have a little segment, everything, where they go like to these weird places or countries or like parts of America, and they always buy a snack. And then the intro of the Snack Zone is way longer than the actual segment itself.
There is a moment in the New Zealand season where Ben and Adam have to try and learn a song off by heart.
Oh, man.
And it's genuinely one of the funniest things, watching 2 men have a simultaneous mental breakdown trying to learn a song.
But I feel so bad for them because that task they had to learn, this song was
very long. And again, they are idiots.
A pair of idiots. It must have been like 3 or 4 verses and the chorus each time that they had to learn. And they were singing it in a tunnel, like a crumbly tunnel.
Under a bridge, yeah. They they start off, and when they're getting words wrong, they're having a little chuckle. And then like it cuts back to Sam doing his thing, being like the geography cyborg that he is, and then it cuts back to the 2 guys who are still fucking up, and every time they fuck up it's just like a string of expletives coming out of Adam.
Adam is like clenching his fists and walking back around, and Ben is just like standing there like, yeah. And one of my favorite gimmicks is how every season there seems to be like a drinking related task, and it always ends up with Ben really drunk and just saying strange things.
Also, every season Adam ends up in an intricate disguise.
Yeah.
To avoid detection. Because
please watch season 2 of Europe, Adam's disguise that he comes out with. Oh my goodness.
There's a lot of these things, Mark, where like they're trying to avoid each other, but they either permanently or for periods of time have to have their live locations enabled. So Adam tries to counteract this because, you know, live locations aren't exactly 100% accurate by wearing a series of incredibly cheap disguises to avoid detection.
It's so obvious that it's still him as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, those tag seasons, Mark, like you get a half an hour head start and the other people then have your live location. So you don't know if they're coming, but they know exactly where you are. So you have to either like keep moving as quickly as you possibly can or find like a really smart way to avoid detection. Dave, there's a way that Ben avoids detection in that last season of Tag that when you see it, please just message me immediately so we can discuss it, because it is too hilarious. Because he does it in the most Ben way possible, i.e. he has no idea what he's doing and still manages to pull off one of the great grifts on the show that I've ever seen. So yeah, Jetlag the Game. Please watch it, comment on it. It's a great thing.
Right, let's go to you, Mark.
What up? Okay, so first of all, Wonka, the new film from Paul King, who I've never seen Paddington or Paddington 2, but I hear they're wonderful films. So
yes, especially Paddington 2, because the main bad guy is played by one Hugh Grant, and he is fucking incredible.
He's pretty good in this as well. I'll get to him in a bit, but yeah, I don't know where you two stand in terms of like
are we burying the lead and just not talking about how he's also he's also the director of The Mighty Boosh?
Yeah.
Well, I don't have a history with The Mighty Boosh, so I don't really care for that. So I can't speak to that.
How dare you, sir?
Yep. Also, Bunny and the Ball, which is a great movie that not many people saw.
But yeah, I don't know where you two stand in terms of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and like I'm not like totally kind of nostalgia pilled on the original. I think it's very good. I do like Gene Wilder. It is obviously a very iconic performance, but I wouldn't say that you know, like if I think of, you know, the great films of time or whatnot, it's not one that immediately kind of springs to mind. I do think that obviously like visually for its time, I think it's a very iconic film in that sense, but I don't think it's like a great film. I think it's more just Sorry, Jack, are you going to say that?
Yeah, no, sorry, because I thought you'd finished. What I was going to say is, but what makes it watchable is how strange it is.
Yes, absolutely.
It's patently a kids' movie, yeah? So it's meant, you know, for younger people, and it's not, I think it's meant to be, you know, definitely up, like, you know, that skewing at that age. But it's so odd, like so creepy. Gene Wilder is in particular really odd and really creepy. And it has that sort of element of weirdness that, say, like Stranger Things tried to capture, where they made like a film about, you know, kids of a certain age and like all coming together in a town and then something odd happening. But it was like borderline scary as well. But it was like, you know, YA level scary, like, you know, sort of 14-year-old level scary. I think the original, like, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory movie with Gene Wilder is that, but there are parts of it that are genuinely horrifying. Some of the things that happen to the kids in it, obviously. That's
kind of the thing with Roald Dahl in general, is like they are kids' books, but a lot of those books have a dark undertone to them, and I think that original film does a very good job of conveying that.
Have you seen Tales of the Unexpected as well?
I haven't, no.
There's like a genuinely brilliant one where there's a wife and her husband is killed, and these two police officers come round to like interview her to try and figure out how he was killed. And there's just like such a genuinely great twist in it that you find out, and something about that whole scene that you eventually realise at the end of it that's just done so very well. So I'd recommend if you're going to watch any of that, just watch that one episode.
And then I would say that I think that the 2005 Tim Burton film is probably my top 5 most hated films of all time.
I'm so glad because when you said top 5, I was like, Mark, if this is a take that you're dropping on here right now,
no, I think it's genuinely one of the most
as well aged like milk movies. One, it's Johnny Depp. Two, it's Johnny Depp doing Michael Jackson.
Yeah, I think also, again, we were just talking about like the visuals there, like that 71 film I think still is a very kind of visually unique looking film.
Yes.
I think that, and like this kind of speaks to Tim Burton's in the mid 2000s anyway, but I think it's a visually ugly looking film. I think it looks just fucking horrendous, and I think that the Alice in Wonderland film also just, I think
has there ever been a pony with like more obviously one trick than Tim Burton? Like he's been flogging that pony for so long now.
I think that was the movie where people finally like they were kind of trying to go, oh look, you know the when Planet of the Apes came out, they were just like it's still good with Tim Burton. But I think like what the fucking that
he's a goofy artist, Dave.
Yeah. Him and Bumble Ward. But that was
before
the one.
Hands came out.
After about 5 seconds of Johnny Depp doing Michael Jackson, you're just like, okay, yeah, my man's lost his soft or his fastball. It's over.
And so this Wonka film here, it kind of serves, I guess, as a prequel to, I think, more the original. I feel like this in some ways retcons the 2005 film and those 10 minutes of Christopher Lee sequences that no one really ever asked for.
I mean, is there like a retcon with it? I just thought it was like they're just redoing a Wonka thing.
I mean, it's kind of hard to say.
Wonkaverse, is it? Like it hasn't got any relation to that movie.
No, look, I think the answer to that question will come in the following years in terms of what they do going forward with this, because I think the one thing to keep in mind is that this has been very successful. It's done very well at the box office.
I think the amount of people I saw when the embargoes finally dropped that they were just like, I can't believe I'm saying it either, but this movie's really good.
And here's my kind of my sort of 1-2 on this is that I think it's good. I don't think it's a particularly great film. I think that crucially it doesn't come across as like this kind of cynical cash grab, which I think when we all saw the trailer is where we thought that this might be going.
When you see Wonka Origins is a thing that's happening.
Yeah. And like, here's the thing, right, with Timothy, is I don't think he's a particularly great actor, but I think that he's likable, and I think that he definitely, the projects that he takes on, he's certainly into it and he gives it his all. And I think that when you have the kind of companion pieces of the interviews and everything around like the marketing and the press and whatnot, he just comes across as a very likable and good dude, and I think that serves some goodwill to the projects that he does. He's in this, he's singing, and the songs that are kind of built around his vocal range, which is quite limited. There's nothing in here where he's really kind of going for it, but it's better than, I don't know, fucking Pierce Brosnan in Mamma Mia. Like, if we're using that as the base, he's definitely above that.
Brosnan and Taffin.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Maybe he shouldn't be living here, Mark.
and overall it's a very charming film that I think, because of the time that it's come out, I can see it being added to the list of Christmas films that people rewatch for years to come, and I think it fits into that mold perfectly well. You've got a pretty much like a not a fully like all-star cast, but there's a lot of memorable faces in here. Like fucking Phil Wang shows up for 5 minutes for a dance sequence that I was not prepared for.
You just sold a ticket.
Yeah, and who's the other one as well? Oh god, there's one of the girls as well from another season of Taskmaster, and I thought we was having like a fucking Taskmaster kind of reunion here.
Please tell me, is it Godlyman?
It's not Godlyman. No,
she just comes up to Wonka and says Bosh.
Yeah, but across the board, like Keegan-Michael Kay, he's very enjoyable in this as the sort of like kind of police constable of this town that they never give the town a specific name, but it's definitely like European in terms of the architecture, but there's like kind of bits of like German architecture in there, and there's bits of like French architecture, And there's bits of, and it's, a lot of the set locations are based in England, so there's a lot of that coming through. And it's kind of like this kind of smashing together of bits of like European culture. So that is kind of interesting that they went for that approach. But overall, it's okay. I came away with a smile, and the songs, none of the songs kind of stuck with me in the days afterwards. But it's an original score. All the songs written by the Divine Comedy.
Wow.
Which adds. It's not like you're listening to it and you can hear that. Now, I'm not like the sort of the biggest in terms of my knowledge of the Divine Comedy, but I do know some of the big hits.
National Express.
Yeah, but I guess it's nice that, because it seems like every fucking score these days is being written by your one from Hamilton. So it's, to have something like this is a bit of a change, because I think he probably could have fit quite well into this.
The Lin-Manuel Miranda-ification of Hollywood.
That's the one. Yeah,
yeah. Rage Against it.
And Hugh Grant is the Oompa Loompa, and he is very much like kind of late stage Hugh Grant in terms of his approach to it, and it gets a big thumbs up from me. The way they present him in terms of the kind of visual effects of it, sometimes they look okay, sometimes they're a bit wonky. Across the board, the visuals are pretty okay. There's kind of a bit towards the end where there's like a lot of like kind of liquid chocolate. That bit looks a bit wonky, but overall it uses a kind of good kind of melding of just kind of really well shot effects and practical effects. And yeah, it's pretty good. Like, if you wanted to go to the cinema and see it, I wouldn't stop you. And I definitely think that, if you've got kids, I can see this being something that will be on repeat for years to come around this time of year. So not bad. And I know Garrett liked it as well, so I think he went 4 on it. I got a 3.5.
Should we finally talk about video games, lads?
I'm here. I'm ready to talk about some games. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
The video gamers.
Okay. Jack, we haven't heard from you in a while, so let's go with you.
Yeah, I mean, I've just been playing GTA 4, not gonna lie.
I'm such an influencer.
Yeah. Well, I watched you play it on stream, and I was like, I want to play this game again. And I started playing it again, and I really like it. It's a really good game. I really like Nico.
Hey, Dave, the driving is good in this game.
The driving is good in this game. It's. I think it's more challenging, than just sort of random kind of the car physics that I like in this game are that different cars actually feel different. I think they get that right. If you're driving a hunked out piece of shit, it handles like a hunked out piece of shit. If you're driving like a really good car, and it handles like a really good car. And I don't really think people like that, because I think people are just playing these games because they're silly fun. And I think they tried to make a video game. Maybe they went too far down the path that they went, say, with like Red Dead Redemption 2, where it was like the time getting on and off the horse, and like all of the details that they tried to put into it to make it feel kind of more realistic, might not appeal to some people. But I like it. I think, yeah, exactly. I like it. I like the way it feels. I like the storyline. I like the gameplay. I like the fact that Nico feels like a real person, and that a lot, aside from like his murderous streak, obviously, but a lot of his reactions to certain characters in it and the absurdity of certain characters in it feel very natural to me. It doesn't feel at all over the top. Like in terms of like him as a person, really. All the people around him are mental, and he's like a bit more grounded and just out there just trying to make money and trying to obviously get his revenge for the spoiler alert, horrible thing that was done to him. And he has this list of people that he's trying to find revenge on it. So it's like, somewhere beyond like a sort of rags to riches style story with like a Kill Bill overtone to it of like a old school revenge movie, which I think is a cool story. So yeah, I know there's been a lot of hate about it on recent podcasts and recent years of people kind of replaying it, but yeah, GTA 4 still holds up as far as I'm concerned. Don't know if I'm going to play it to the finish or not. Like, and see if anything else kind of captures my imagination in the next few weeks to start giving it a go. Maybe get ahead get ahead on some of Game of the Year 2024. I don't know for anything that's releasing now, but hey, GTA 4, good game. Not too much more to say it. And yeah, Mark is an influencer. However, I won't be playing any of the games that Mark was playing on his stream this week, which you guys should go and watch. One of which is a Home Alone game, which it just involves some absolutely hilarious yeeting of bad guys into the near distance. So recommend a watch of the stream, but I recommend a play of the game.
Yeah. Just a lot of bad Christmas games. Just a lot of bad games in general, besides Die Hard Trilogy. That still holds up.
Dog shit games that you were playing, honestly.
Yeah, that's how I like to spend Christmas.
What was the one that was like it was like a Lithuanian studio?
Santa Claus Saves the Earth.
Yeah, and it was like really asset flippy, and there were just like loads of weird power-ups to collect.
Fucking
and for some
trash.
reason, you threw tomatoes until you ran out of tomatoes, and then you threw snowballs
But you know
instead of
what?
tomatoes.
Do you know what's still great? Fucking The Weakest Link for the PlayStation 1.
Oh my goodness me!
The banter.
Some surprisingly spicy banter between the contestants. Yeah, and then as the questions got harder, mate, like some of those, at first I was like, oh, this is really easy, this game. And then towards the end of the game, there were a few questions in there where I'm like, Jesus Christ, no one knows the answer to this.
The best thing to do when you're streaming is play a quiz-based game to show off your lack of fucking general knowledge. But
yeah,
I got to the last the one before the final round, though, so it's I'd say fairly respectable performance.
And I'd say I knew the answer to maybe like 1 in 3, maybe 1 in 2 of those questions if it was like at a push, but some of them were just obscure to the level of insanity. So yeah,
you would think my namesake Anne Robinson would have helped me out, but here we are.
You would think so, but it felt harder than watching the actual show. Because, the show felt a lot more dumbed down. Like, the early rounds were kind of straightforward, but then it got, like, astronomical, and you're like, what the fucking, any of these questions. It felt more like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, kind of 500 to a million style questions towards the end.
I think, if I recall, it had, like, a difficulty setting, and I think I was playing, like, on the normal setting, so, I'm sure the easy setting is obviously way more easy in terms of the knowledge that you'd need. But yeah, no, I feel like the normal rounds, you had that kind of progression of going from fairly easy questions to start with, like in that kind of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire format. But yeah, just good banter with the characters. I need to see if there's more of them. I might jump on another one at some point on another stream.
Yeah. I'd love I'd love it if there may well be this on YouTube if someone's just collected some of the things that the sort of embittered people that get voted off the show at the end say about each other, because there's some absolute classics in there.
I have been playing a couple of games, so I'm playing Alan Wake 2 again. Because they
what, again?
Well, they dropped the final chapter update, which is it's New Game Plus, so I can go through, keep my weapons, and make my platinum run. But also for the final draft, they introduced a new ending. And some new story beats, some extra manuscript pages and stuff like that. So as somebody
is it new ending canon, or is it like a sort of
I haven't got to it yet, and I'm trying not to read about it, so I can't tell you that yet. A friend of the show, Matt Niner, could fill you in if you really want to know, or you can wait until I've done it. I'm already most of the way back through the game again. So
blimey.
I will get there. It's going to be, I'm very much enjoying it and taking my time this time to kind of pour over more of the manuscript pages and some of the environmental storytelling, which is really fucking clever and really intricate. This is a really, really special game. And normally it would take me a long time to want to replay the campaign of a story-based game, start to finish again, but I am just consuming this thing all over again. It's such a special experience. I really, really like it. The other thing, because I was like, hey, they announced a new GTA, and instead of going to an absolute trash game like GTA 4, I decided to have a go, because I've never actually replayed the campaign on GTA 5. And it's only like 10 or 15 quid for the PS5 port. So I decided to beef up to get that kind of like tasty looking current gen version of the game, and it is pretty sweet. It looks pretty sweet, and guys, that GTA 5, it's a hell of a lot of fun. It's a good game. I don't know if you've heard, folks. Have you heard about this one?
I really liked it.
It's pretty fucking good. It's pretty fucking good. Yeah, that's a lot of fun. And I kind of dipped a little bit back into the online as well, where like I'm completely out of my depth in terms of like the people on this are like absolute nut jobs who've been playing this game nonstop since 2013 online.
Yeah, no chance I'd be going online with that
But
game.
it's cool to like even just to go into passive mode, so you're not getting randomly fucking capped on the street, so you can just kind of speed around in your flash cars that you bought when you were doing it for real the first time. And kind of go do the different events then, because like this is the thing about it, because it's been updated so regularly for so long. There's so much fucking content in that online, man. Like there's so much to do. You could spend several days doing different stuff and probably never repeat the same mini game. And like, yeah, people who spend more money get like, you know, flasher cars and things like that. But there's a lot of the mini games where they've done a good bit of work to negate any competitive edge someone would have, because you'll have like, say, a race, which is cool. And sometimes, depending on who's hosting the lobby, they'll allow you to put in your custom cars. But a lot of people now are doing the thing where no, you can't bring in your custom cars. You can just pick from the preset selection on here. So that levels the playing field a good bit, which gives me a more realistic possibility of actually, you know, winning a race here or there. Because I've got pretty tuned up cars, but not tuned up by 2023's definition of tuned up cars in that game. Yeah, it's still an excellent experience. It's and the campaign is fun. I'd forgotten a lot about you know, Michael and the gang. So it feels almost like going through a fresh GTA campaign. So it's like it's really scratching the itch before we return to Vice City in a couple of years. Definitely more so than the Liberty City collection did.
He felt like a very sort of, I've been ported out of a Sopranos-esque world and dumped into this particular scenario type character. Mm-hmm. I think the three main characters, all very different motivations and interesting. And yeah, I mean, Trevor is, I don't know if Trevor holds up.
I'm just about to get to him.
I see. I don't know if he's going to hold up, you know, but some of the times when you switch over to him and he's like at the top of a mountain wearing a dress, or like he's in the middle of like a bank robbery or something and you have to get away, is one of the cooler moments in the game.
It was a good recurring bit that like you'd usually find the other two lads roughly where you left them when you'd switch back.
Yeah, or in like relatable scenarios.
Yeah, but like it was real fucking random wherever Trevor would be.
Yeah, exactly. Like crouch behind something while people firing guns at him, and you like got to shoot your way out of it somehow.
High atop Mount Chiliad, like asleep in a bush. Yeah, all that kind of shit. But GTA 5 is a pretty good game, guys. Check it out.
Almost as good as GTA 4.
Lots of people don't own it, I'm sure. Definitely.
I'm surprised there's anyone left on the planet that doesn't own it.
And there's only limited ways to acquire it in 2023, you know?
Yeah.
Mark, what have you been doing?
Oh, well, I purchased Driftwood today, which is 40% off. So you can get that for about $7 boyos. They've got a Christmas update with that. I haven't actually played Driftwood yet, but I have that now, and I'm going to definitely get that on the old Steam Deck over the Christmas period. So I'm sure I'll have words to say about that in the new year. So you may have seen over the last week or so that there was this fan mod of Link's Awakening DX called Link's Awakening DX HD that went up on itch.io, and then, wouldn't you know it, very quickly within the next 24 to 48 hours, Nintendo contacted the developer to basically put a takedown on it, and that thing was taken off of itch.io very, very quickly. But it is the internet, which means that if you want to find that thing, it is out there. Or you can just send me a DM on Twitter and I can sort you out. I managed to get that thing up and running on the Steam Deck, and let me tell you, that thing looks beautiful on the old Steam Deck. So there's only a couple of adjustments that is made to this thing compared to the original, but they are pretty kind of fundamental. First of all is that, this thing looks very smooth. It's in 1080p or 4K You can upscale the thing in terms of, so like there's 10 different kind of scalings of resolutions, but like it will auto scale to like whatever device that you're playing, but you can fucking basically zoom the whole map out and be looking basically at the entire map while you're playing, which is very kind of bizarre. The big thing though is that, so with this and the original Legend of Zelda, the game kind of works in a boxed format with the level design. So if you hit like the left of a screen, the screen will scroll over to the next area, and Link's gone from like the left side of the screen to the right side of the screen, and then you continue like that. And dungeons work in the same way as well. But that is removed from this version, so now it's just, you know, like you're just kind of scrolling along the map like you're playing, you know, any other top-down Zelda game. And because Link's Awakening isn't designed with that in mind, it's kind of, and because I've played Link's Awakening so many times in a particular way with that boxed format, it's kind of jarring to see, you know, when you scan out and see the town that you're in, and then the kind of moblin forest that's just above it kind of like moving at the same time. But it makes the world feel a little bit more alive because you're seeing these characters moving at the same time, and it makes this game feel it gives it a different slant, which is actually kind of interesting. And then the other big thing as well is that you have 4 infantry slots now instead of 2. I can't remember if the 2019 recreation gave you 4 slots. I'd have to imagine it did, but I'm not sure about that. But like, one of the things that people talk about with Ocarina of Time is the water temple and the fact that you have to constantly go into the menu to fit or remove the iron boots. And people don't kind of mention that Link's Awakening is that has that issue, but for the entire game, because you only have 2 slots. And so, you know, if you want to equip the Pegasus boots, you have to go into the menu and then swap out either your sword and shield, which then means that for that period of time, you either don't have your sword or shield. And that, obviously, it's the limitations of a game that was made for the Game Boy, but it does slow down the kind of flow of the game when you're constantly having to kind of bolt back and forth between certain items. Certainly in some of the latter dungeons where you're having to use multiple items. So having those 4 infantry slots, meaning that you can just constantly always have your sword and shield at hand, and then, you know, equip your Pegasus boots or whatever else, it does drastically speed up the flow of the game, and you don't have that constantly going back and forth into the menu. So it's a real nice quality of life feature, and it's just really nice to play this on the Steam Deck. It's not like entirely straightforward to get it up and running, but if you do have a Steam Deck and you do want to have a look at this, give me a shout and I'll be more than happy to hook you up. But it's real nice. It's a very nice way to play this game. And you know, Link's Awakening DX is a very, very good game.
Hell yeah.
I know, Dave, you are a fan of it. Did you get it up and running yet?
I haven't tried yet. I was saying off here, I've been trying to get Silent Hill 2 Enhanced Edition going, but yeah, I was still in work while I was trying to do that, and like when you've got work stuff going on in the evenings, your brain is mush, so you don't have the patience to be getting an enhanced port of an old PC game working. I kind of I'll get to it at some point over the Christmas. I'll have a go.
It's not that difficult. Yeah. It's a 10-minute job, genuinely.
Yeah.
So the other thing, I about an hour before we started doing this, I downloaded the Tekken 8 demo, which is currently available. I don't know if it's like a timed demo. I'd imagine it probably is. But at least as of the time of this recording on Friday, it is available. I have it on the Xbox Series S, but I believe it's on PlayStation and Windows as well, or Steam, I guess. And yeah, I'm a big Tekken fan. I've played through all of them. I do think there are some that are better than others. I liked Tekken 7. I blitzed through that in like the quickest platinum trophy I think I've ever obtained. And you come to Tekken 8 and what this demo is presenting, and there's definitely a sense of, hey, we've played those modern Mortal Kombat games, and even like, you know, Street Fighter has done this as well, and I think they've really like gone, okay, we need to make a more fleshed out single player story campaign, because there is lore to Tekken. It is fucking ridiculous and bonkers, and involves many, many people being yeeted into a volcano off the side of cliffs. But there is lore there, and there is stuff that if Namco wanted to kind of like make a modern Mortal Kombat style single player campaign with these characters and their stories, they could very much do that. And that's what they have here. So there's a couple of modes in the demo. There is the kind of story campaign. There is a sort of arcade story campaign, which I'll get to in a second. And then there's just, your typical jump into a match against the opponent or a computer or a player, a friend. And I remember the kind of story campaign they had in Tekken 7 was it was sort of treading the kind of DNA of what those Mortal Kombat games does, but it also felt very kind of stripped down in terms of its essentials. There was a lot of like kind of storyboard style cut sequences where there wasn't a lot of animation. They still look very nice in their presentation, but they weren't like animated or anything, and it felt very much like a kind of stripped down version of one of those sorts of things. They've gone like all out now. One of the first things you're doing that you're presented with is a fight between Jin Kazama and Kazuya, and you've got like 4 rounds, and between each round there's cutscenes and sequences, and it's in game as well, but there's also some FMV stuff as well. But the quality of the production is so high that it's very difficult to see the differences. The game looks unbelievable. You can, like, when you get a close up on the fists, you can see like the stitching on Kazuya's gloves. It's ridiculous the amount of detail they've gone into for this thing. And it plays very much like a Tekken game, as you remember. The camera's a little bit too close for me. It's kind of the issue I had, I think, with Tekken 4. And the kind of Mortal Kombat has that as well, where the camera is just a little bit too close for me. I like Tekken 2 and Tekken 3 because the camera's out a little bit more and it feels more like a kind of 3D game, where this feels a little bit more like a 2D game currently, but it is a 3D game. You still can move around the space. But it just, I don't know. I'd like it if there's the ability to move the camera back a little bit. The thing they've added into this game in terms of the combat is there's a heat meter that you can use once per round that kind of activates for, I'd say, about 4 or 5 seconds, and it greatly increases your damage multiplier to the point that, if your opponent is trying to block hits, they'll still have damage chipped away. So you're trying to kind of gamble when to activate the heat meter to, maybe try and kind of knock your opponent off their feet so you can blast in a bunch of shots. There's a kind of similar to what Street Fighter does, where there's sort of like a simplified mode of the combat and the sort of kind of button input. This has that as well, but I'm way more versed with Tekken, so that felt kind of very unnatural, and I'm more than happy to play through like Tekken as it's intended to be. So I'll be very curious to play this and see like how fucking out there they go. Like, because you've basically got like an anime battle between Jin and Kazuya going into their devil format, and fucking like Kazuya, the end of the demo is Kazuya being like, oh, I want to take over the world, and you're all weak and humans are weak, and I need to find like the best fighters so I can destroy them. So here, let's have a King of Iron Fist tournament. And it's like, all right, this is fucking anime as bonkers, and it's great though. I'm into it. And then the other thing they have then is this kind of like arcade story mode where you have these, they're not quite chibi characters. They actually kind of look like the old Xbox 360 Avatar characters. And you are kind of like, kind of getting into sort of like the esports scene where you're playing, in an actual arcade with loads of Tekken 8 arcade cabinets. And you're, if you've ever played like Tekken games, and you can grow your rank as you win more matches, and you're doing that inside of the game. So your character is, trying to become like the best Tekken 8 character. And I only played that for about 10 minutes or so. There's a lot of fluff in that kind of like, how Pokemon has tried to establish more like story and writing over the years, and a lot of it is completely unnecessary. It kind of feels like it's doing this as well, but it's very easy to just kind of skip the cinematic sequences and just get to the bits where you can play Tekken. And then at that point, it kind of fits more into that arcade mode of just like, playing round after round against opponents, trying to increase your rank. So I'm curious to kind of see like what the end game of that is, or how that connects up maybe with other players that are playing as well. I'm not sure if there's like a kind of a connective tissue where those two worlds collide, where, you know, I can see my rank and I can see Jack's rank, and then maybe we have a match at some point. I don't know. But it plays good. It feels good. This is the first fighting game to be done in the Unreal 5 engine. And, you know, no corners look to be cut. It's a very high level of production on this thing. And, you know, Tekken is my fighting game of choice. So I very much look forward to playing the kind of final version of this. And if you haven't seen like the character models yet, if you know Paul Phoenix, right? He's got the big kind of upright hair. He's got more of like a kind of to the side fringe thing going on, and he looks fucking ridiculous.
I love Paul.
He's
the Burning Fist in Tekken 3 is one of the GOAT moves in any fighting game ever.
But he's got that kind of haggard 50-year-old look going on, but then has this fucking like blonde.
Beat into the choir, man.
Man, it's a look. It's a look, I tell you. So yeah, it's the demo's available. I'd say definitely like pick it up, have a look at it, play it, and yeah, I don't know. I think that's out in February. I want to say. I feel like that's fairly early next year. I don't know what the price on that thing is. I'm hoping it's not 80 quid, because I could do without that, but it needs to be played. So if I have to fork it over, then I will.
It needs to be played. It
does.
Must be played.
It must be played.
So you can once again become the king of the Iron Fist tournament, Mark.
Damn right, and yeet you into a volcano.
Yeah? Is Yoshimitsu in this game?
I mean, I would imagine so. The 4 playable characters, you've got Jin, Kazuya, Paul, and Nina Williams.
Right.
And then all the other characters are faded out, and you can't actually select them, so I couldn't actually go in and kind of look through them.
Just can't imagine you not being Yoshimitsu. Like,
of course I will be Yoshimitsu.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it doesn't feel right. Yeah, that's your geezer.
My geezer. I have no idea on who, like, because I'm a bit checked out in terms of the Tekken lore. I don't remember who's a new character and who's a character from Tekken 6 or 7.
Do any of the video games have any lore that ever makes any sense that anyone cares about?
I certainly
It's not that it
hope
makes sense. It's not that it makes sense. I just can't remember at this point who's a character from Tekken 7 and who's a new character in this. That's all. That's all I'm saying.
Really, like with fighting games, it really doesn't matter though, does it?
Like, I mean, Mortal Kombat 1 proved it, right, with the you know, attempts, air quotes, to retcon that story.
Just why is there a story? Just, it's a King of Iron Fist tournament. They're all, you know, what was it, Tekken 3, where they had like the 30-second little clips when you completed the game with somebody, and it's like, you know, I don't know, Law and Paul Phoenix hanging out, and then one of them falls over and the other one pisses himself or something. You know, that's all I need. Maybe a little bit. I don't need anything else. Just give me, like, instead of like trying to put a story in it, just give me like Tekken Ball mode and Tekken Bowl mode and all the modes. I don't need story in my fighting games.
That is the only thing that's disappointing about this demo, is that the Tekken Ball mode isn't available in this to at least like try it out and see how it plays. So yeah. That's what we're spending the 80 quid on.
Yeah, just give me that. Like, I love story in video games, right? It's one of my favorite things, but I do not need story, half-assed, half-executed story in my fighting games. Just let me punch some stuff.
I will say with these sequences, they're not half-assed.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. I'll take your word for it. Will I care about them?
No, of course not. And neither will I. But we'll have a great time.
Yeah.
Right. We'll move over to the news, and Mark, you're going to kick things off. Talking about a story. Yeah, it's like, I think there was an initial, like, I think the reaction publicly to this story came in 2 waves, where there was like a salacious, let's talk about some of the scoops that are got, and then the more people stop and think about it, the more icky they feel. And weirdly, it's kind of started a conversation about the appropriateness of what is and isn't news.
Yeah, it's been a real discourse week in when isn't there a discourse week when it comes to games?
Capital D.
And like the way we talk about it, the way we present it, etc., etc. So yes, unfortunately, Insomniac had been hit by a cyber attack, I think a couple of weeks ago. And the perpetrators of that basically threatened to leak that information online If they weren't paid, I think it was several $100 million. I don't remember the exact figure.
It was it was the equivalent of like $2 million in Bitcoin.
That was it in Bitcoin. Yes, that's it. Yes, and Insomniac and Sony, basically said fuck off, and so the hackers leaked it all several days ago,
and boy did they leak it all.
Yeah, so in there, look, I'm not going to go into, we don't have the kind of very specific details, and this will kind of speak to what we'll talk about in a second.
I kind of do.
But the kind of overview of this is like the roadmap of like the next 7 or 8 years in terms of the games that are coming. And that would have been one thing, and you'd be like, okay, well, some things we knew about that anyway, but unfortunately, along as with this as well came, the personal details of people that work at the company, people that have left the company, freelancers, a lot of details that should not be made available to the public. And unfortunately, from this, we've had certain publications that have really dug into the weeds of these details and presented this information. And it's that now we're kind of talking about what is the acceptable levels in terms of, because obviously this is a major thing and it does need to be kind of brought to the light. I don't think anyone anywhere is going to dispute that, hey, Insomniac have been hacked. Report this, that Insomniac have been hacked. Yeah, we're all in agreement with that. But in terms of the minutiae of like how much of that detail is made available, how much of that information you want to either present to the public or tell the public is available to be found or wherever you want to go find it, becomes a real grey area about like what is the rights and wrongs of how this is approached. And you've got that, and then you've just also got a lot of people that seeing people who are surprised that the budget of Spider-Man 2 ran into the hundreds of millions and not understanding like how is that possible, kind of continues to speak to this disconnect that a lot of people who play video games at a fundamental level do not understand how video games are made and how much they cost to be made when we're talking about the very tip top of the industry, in terms of like the budgets that are involved. And it's been frustrating to see people that have an ignorance about these things and an unwillingness to either learn or to listen to the people who either do know or at least have enough of a kind of fundamental understanding. Because I've seen a couple of like indie developers who are like, hey, I don't have the exact figures, but I can give you like a ballpark and tell you why Spider-Man 2 cost anywhere between like 200 million to 300 million. And when you look at kind of the raw numbers, it's like, well, of course it fucking cost that much. Like there's no way it could have cost any less than that.
Because we're also in an era where not only are video games like costing as much as movies, but they're grossing more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's a reality people need to get their heads around.
But the people making the games are being paid way less than those in movies.
Because you don't have to pay the voice actors get paid like a handful of peanuts and a slap on the back, essentially.
Hot dog and a handshake, brother.
I spoke about this in my blog post for my Game of the Year list, and I kind of spoke about like
plug.
Yeah. Well, it's not out yet. And it's like,
when's it coming out? When's your one coming out?
I haven't decided. I'll figure out.
You can't just be dropping that kind of, the people are sat there refreshing, waiting for this Mark Robinson blog post to drop.
Are they, Jack? Right.
F5's harder than Brock, some have said.
And look, I don't think that we're going to see a kind of gaming crash 1983 style. But what I do think is that a lot of the bigger developers and publishers, there's this black hole that they're slowly getting sucked into. And I do think that the kind of positive, hopefully the positive outcome is that a lot more of the focus and attention and money goes into these smaller studios where there's a much more kind of reasonable and viable like risk reward factor in terms of, all right, here's a studio of 10 people making this really interesting thing. We give them a couple of million. The return on that will hopefully be, how much ever more than that. And you're not kind of banking on, hey, this game took 300 million to cost. Hopefully in 3 years' time we'll break even on this fucking thing. It's just
It's interesting to see that
it's not sustainable
as these budgets are ballooning. Something that was very much a couple of generations ago thing is really happening again, where to hedge financial bets, so much of what studios are putting their money into now are IPs they have licensed from elsewhere, and that's another element to the Insomniac thing, is their 10-year exclusive agreement with Marvel to put out games. And one of the things I found interesting about it, and it was a really good kind of piece of insight from Jeff Gerstmann was talking about it on his show. He's just like, as much as we can get into the details of like, oh, it's so cool they're doing this game, that game, and then 10 years from now they'll be doing this game, it's like, with the way these things are going, and like you said, but the lack of the lack of certainty that this model is sustainable. In video games, you can really only be certain about 2 projects into the future. Everything else is up for grabs. Like if Spider-Man 3 and Wolverine, if one of them bombs, or Marvel continues its trajectory in not being as solid a return on investment as once was at the box office for films, things may dramatically change. So we may not actually know as much as we think we know about the future plans of Insomniac in this case.
Yeah. I think Mark sort of skirted over it and just went straight for the budget conversation, but to me, like, leaking people's DMs and like Slack conversations and all of that kind of stuff, internal emails to each other, is like really unnecessarily seedy.
Yeah, for sure.
Just like the standard people, if it's like, you want to, I'm going to nail these executives and release all of their emails, where they're talking about this like high power stuff or whatever, I don't like that either, really, but like I get why that's juicy, and that's what happened to Sony back in the day, Sony Pictures, when all of that stuff came out. But just the regular, like, I imagine like me and my mate Andy that I work with, our conversations about weird British comedies of the mid-2000s, getting leaked out to the internet so people can, finally hear what my views on like Toast are, the Mighty Boosh and stuff. Like, I don't, that stuff just feels grim to me. Like, I wish the hackers were just like, here, because what's really worthwhile in all this is like, oh, so we've got the release timeline, we've got like the concept art and the gameplay footage, and like there's like a big vertical slice from Wolverine, and we kind of find out that there's going to be like Venom DLC to transfer between Spider-Man 2 and Spider-Man 3, and there's going to be Spider-Man Online, and there's another Ratchet and Clank game coming, but not until the end of the decade. All of this, that's the stuff that, like, yeah, if someone's going to leak stuff, like, I get it, but I just think that leaking people's emails and like performance reviews, I think, as I heard someone saying, it's just I hate that sort of stuff, because that's not the thing that's going to hurt the execs either. Like, they don't care about that. Like, when you're threatening a company, they do not care about those little fucking details. They care about the big things that they want to keep back from people. The
other thing that I think was this to me is maybe the seediest implication of it all is the ransomware group saying that this represents, I think they said 97% of what they have. And I hadn't thought about it, but again, Jeff Gerstmann was saying the implication of that is that they've already sold the remaining 3% of the information privately to a third party.
Yeah, I see.
And we could spend a lot of time speculating on what or who would buy that kind of information, or what that information is. I'm not really interested in doing that kind of speculation myself, but it is grim.
We all know, though. We all know the sort of thing that you're talking about. So yeah, it is grim. Really, really grim. It's you've got a future plot on the morning show that's not like this, but has sort of similar earmarks to this to look forward to, Dave.
Cool.
So the first thing that I thought, because how the morning show, everything's super melodramatic, the first thing I thought of this was, on the previous season of the morning show where something like this happened, I was like, oh, nothing like this would happen on like this scale where this amount of information would be released out to the public and all of that. And then it happened within months of me watching that episode. And I was like, oh, holy shit, I'll get back in my box and I will never have another take ever again.
Hey, let's stop talking about grim stuff and talk about something bright and breezy that we all love. Starfield's been in the news.
What game is that, sorry?
Oh, it's this little indie smash hit.
Oh, right. I see. I don't think I've heard of this Starfield.
Yeah.
No, I don't know about it.
Well, in a new blog post, Bethesda has promised to provide updates roughly every 6 weeks starting in February. Well, I mean, if they do it every 6 weeks starting in February, by the end of 2024, there might be something approaching a full video game inside that game.
Something interesting worth watching when no one's paying attention.
These updates will include everything from quality of life improvements, so it will have some quality of life, to content and feature updates such as new ways to travel, new ways to customize ships, and new gameplay options. So even though it wasn't it didn't follow the structure of Fallout in as much as being broken and then mechanically fixing it within 3 months, it seems like they're going to follow, funnily enough, the No Man's Sky path. And we may come back in about 2 or 3 years now and just go, Starfield is alright. This is pretty good. Because they finally put stuff in it that was not there at launch. But, like the one thing I guess you can say is that at least they aren't like cutting bait on this for the people that had been excited for it for so long and then ended up like bitterly fucking disappointed. They, at least for a while, are doubling down on, no, we can fix it. So like I'm all for them trying to get closer to what this game seemed to promise it was going to be. But the question I would ask myself out loud, gentlemen, is why it took this game coming out for them to realize that the game wasn't what they were pitching it as being. Like,
well, that's because the game had been development in for so long that at some point, using the cyberpunk look at these things, at some point the thing just has to come out, and you hope that you can.
Well, I think the problem
make some sort of.
I think the problem is they announced it way sooner than they fucking should have.
Well, there is that. But at some point, you've got to get the thing out, hope that you can get some sort of return on investment, and then use that as a platform to then work on a bunch of things. And, modders had already been working on working on a bunch of issues and spelling errors and other bits and pieces that Bethesda have actually made it quite difficult for them to do that kind of stuff. And yeah, it's a weird one, I guess, because like it's not that the game has the kind of major bugs and issues that prior Bethesda games have had that were completely game breaking, but it is, as you mentioned there, just in terms of the kind of core experience of Starfield, it's like I don't know if you can just kind of bolt on a bunch of fixes and then suddenly you're going to have a compelling experience, because you guys spoke about Starfield a lot more when it came to Game of the Year, and the just kind of fundamental disappointment that is that campaign and the lack of things to do,
and just the fundamental. And I think the really and look, I don't want to fully ape what will be our Game of the Year discussion, but something we get into on that was just like even the basics of what a Bethesda game is. Like people used to say about them as like, oh, look, it runs like shit, but at least it's extremely well written. And we couldn't even rely on that. Was so fucking disappointing.
So, yeah. I mean, I guess the one thing with this, at least, though, is that because it is on Game Pass, there's the hope that it'll be a lot easier for people to be like, hey, they put a patch out now, maybe I'll re-download Starfield and give it a go and see, if this is the version that I want to play. That's the hope, at least, I guess. But, I don't know. Maybe it's a Cyberpunk thing. Maybe we need to wait a year and a half and then the version that we all hoped for will be there.
Maybe. Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm hearing now from loads of people whether it's friend of the show Matt Niner or Barry and stuff like that, where they're like now bet into Cyberpunk and they're like, this game is pretty fucking great.
Yeah.
Which is wild. I didn't think, like, much as I love CD Projekt Red, I fucking, you know me and The Witcher, lads, I don't need to get into that again. Even I didn't believe that, like, they'd be able to pull that fucking one out of the fire with how bad it was at launch. But
hey Dave, The Witcher 3 or Alan Wake 2?
Oh, that's a tough one, because they're doing entirely different things.
Yeah, I know, but just like, you know, it's one of those quick fire rounds where you just have to answer.
I think in terms of storytelling, if storytelling is what I'm prioritizing, then it's Alan Wake all day.
Wow.
All day.
Dave has been wake-pilled to a dangerous extent.
Well, Alan Wake 2 pushes the medium forward as far as the storytelling medium goes. Like, whereas The Witcher was more
Listen to him.
Like, it was a perfect distillation of what people were already doing. With RPGs as storytelling.
Hey, Dave, speaking of pushing the medium forward,
hello.
Bobby Kotick is gone, bitch! It's over.
Golden parachute.
It's over.
Yeah, he's gone.
Oh, I'd imagine the truly sickening golden handshake that he got.
I think I read is about 155 million.
That sickens me to my stomach. But yeah, he's been in charge of that company for 32 years now. Which is just complete insanity, really, like how he lasted this long. But yeah, apparently this week he's being sort of allowed to, you know, send a message around and walk out of the company kind of with his head held high. I would imagine one of the clauses of Microsoft running this takeover of Activision Blizzard was that we cannot continue with Bobby Kotick as CEO, because how could you ever possibly take Microsoft seriously after all of the horrible allegations and things that happened around Activision in the last couple of years? Just, it wouldn't be a serious company. So they're bringing in Jill Braff, who is a current general manager of integrations and casual games at Xbox Game Studio. She will be taken over as the CEO of Activision Blizzard. And yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where, you know, the initial reaction is, woohoo, Bobby Kotick's out. But like, how did he last this long? Genuinely horrifying. It's just 32 years, and you know, it really does beg the question, like, I would love an inside story from someone who's been in the company like for a lengthy amount of time to know how much influence does Bobby Kotick have on the success of the company. Like, how much does a CEO who kind of just is at the top, you know, in the ceremonial position, take for all of the good hard work of all the other people, all of the creative ideas, and like, what did Bobby Kotick do to drive Activision to be that ridiculously profitable company that they've become? Or is he simply, much like I think, just a hard taskmaster who cuts people's jobs every couple of years to make savings, and takes an awful lot of over target earnings and bonuses from the company? I'll let you guys decide.
Yeah, I think here's the thing, is like, man survives so long because corporations like Activision Blizzard are monstrously indifferent to a lot of the shit he was getting away with, because the only, and I mean only, thing that matters is the bottom line. And, you know, as long as number goes up, Bobby was safe. But we finally got to a position where, you know, the acquisition happened, and now, much like you're seeing with, say, TKO, and them slowly trying to nudge Vince McMahon bit by bit back out of that company again, you're seeing now this company's been taken over. They're like, well, this is a liability we could do without at this stage.
Yeah,
something that scares me. I half kind of joke when I say this, but I still think that there's at least part of me that thinks it could be a genuine possibility. Is that there is an open CEO vacancy at Unity currently, and if
were you thinking of going for it? Are you getting your CV in there, back in the world of work?
No. I'm on about Bobby Kotick taking over Unity.
Oh god damn, no. Surely not. Can he just not fucking retire and leave and go away forever?
I mean, he could have done that 20 odd fucking years ago.
And then like social media low key celebrates his death like it's Kissinger years later. I don't know.
But yeah, that is there, and he could probably walk into that tomorrow and be like, hey, I'm the guy that made fucking Call of Duty, which, you know, isn't the case, but
how many rooms do you think he walks into and says those exact words? Because I think it probably has happened. Because I was just like, I was about to take the piss out of Mark, and I was like, no, there's absolutely no way he's not said those words out loud before. Yeah. He definitely has. But
there is a track record that he can like point at. Again, however much of that is of he's doing or is up for discussion. And I'm sure Unity, because of their fucking issues at the moment, would probably take a look and be like, hey, maybe he is the guy that can turn things around. I don't think he is, but like there are a lot of really dumb fucking people in the world that just, you know, make bad decisions. So
Mark, you're just on the darkest timeline possible right now.
Look, I've been hurt before.
But look, the important information to tell you though is that obviously, Jill Braff has taken over Activision, but Blizzard president Mike Ibarra will apparently report directly to the recently promoted Xbox executive Matt Booty.
One of my favorite executive names. It's even better than Doug Bowser, isn't it?
Yeah, I for one would be happy to work under Booty. I think it would be a great experience. Don't know about you guys.
You would be happy to work that booty?
I would be working that booty every single day.
Would you
just to make sure?
Would you ring him for work related inquiries?
Ring? Oh, careful!
And ask what that booty do.
What does that booty do on a day-to-day basis?
But would you call him and say, "Hey, I'm here to do a booty call"?
Possibly. Or if I had some bad news,
you'd absolutely call like the staff all hands meetings booty calls. You definitely would.
The booty call, yeah.
The 11 a.m. booty call.
Yeah, don't give him any bad news. I want him to shake the booty. You know what I'm saying? It's well. Anyway, that's enough.
Yeah, fuck Bobby Kotick.
Yeah, rest in piss. You know, and
Bozo.
Rip Bozo. You know, I showed up at Activision to his funeral just to see that this guy was dead. Kind of, you know, memes that have been permeating the internet for every now and then. How about deal with all of the awful problems in your company and not sweep them under the carpet and go for all the lawsuits? How about just deal with them? Then you don't have to have any lawsuits and you run a company that people like working for. But all that matters to you is money. Go away forever, Bobby Kotick. I hate that you're in Moneyball, one of my favourite movies ever, and I hate you. Anyway.
I'd be happy if he spent all that money on an island and went and flew there and then we never heard from him again. But
and that island was Madripoor, and Wolverine ripped his face off just to combine the first news item with the last news item.
Alright.
Well, on that note, that's got to do it for Link to the Cast this week. We really appreciate you sticking with us throughout 2023. This is our last regularly scheduled program for quite a while, because next time you hear us, it will be Game of the Year territory, and then we'll be taking our usual most of January off before we were...
Well, in fairness, you will, Dave. I have plenty of things planned.
Yes. I mean, this whole thing that we all like agreed that we would take January's off, and then Mark just comes back earlier and earlier every year to do is
oh yeah, Mark's back next week.
But some of us will be sticking to the usual plan of doing a hiatus in January. Mark will be back. Obviously, the McGee post-mortem on Game of the Year, as is tradition, will be happening at some stage. But thank you very much. We hope you enjoy Game of the Year when it comes out. We hope you have a very enjoyable festive season. In the meantime, if you want to keep up with us, chat to us about our Game of the Year takes, or tell us what your games of the year were for 2023. You can tweet us at Link to the Cast and follow us on there. Individually, I'm at The Day to Dave, Mark is at Lithium Project, Jack is at Jack Lazell, and the absent Garrett Kidney is at Garrett Kidney. Thank you very much for listening to Link to the Cast again this week. We shall see you all very soon. Bye bye.